Hello, welcome to Abdow Avenue. I'm Jason Abdow, and before I get started with the review, I just kind of want to explain what this channel really is. So if you're unfamiliar with Abdow Avenue, it is a blog I started about a year and a half ago, and I would just use it to write music reviews, op-eds, lists, basic music stuff like that. And while I love doing it, and I love sharing my opinions about music with people, it became a little hard to manage. I'll put the link in the description if you just want to see my general opinions on last year's albums. It became a little tough to manage, especially with being a college student, working, basic stuff like that. So I've been pretty dead on that. I've still been listening to a bunch of music, but I haven't really been sharing my opinions. So I figured this would be the best way for me to get back into the music reviewing game, I guess I would say. Because I just love talking, and I feel like it's a little breezier, a little less pressure than sitting down and writing 1,000 words on an album and going through, editing it word for word, yada yada. You don't need to hear all the boring details. So enough about me, let's talk about the music, and today we're going to be talking about singer-songwriter Lorde's sophomore album, Melodrama. For those who are unfamiliar, which would be really surprising because Lorde was huge back in 2013 with singles such as Royals, Team, and her album Pure Heroine, which was, I think, positively reviewed at the time. I don't really remember what critics thought, but I personally thought it was pretty good. Maybe not as groundbreaking as a lot of people had made it out to be at the time, but considering this was an album by a 16-year-old singer-songwriter, it was better than it had any right to be. And now it's been 4 years since that album's come out, and Lorde's been relatively quiet. She's dropped a few singles for the Hunger Games movies here and there, and those have been pretty good too. But we haven't really heard from her on a studio album, so I was curious, now that she's older, a little more mature, would that play into her music, or are we just going to get a little more of the same? Because the sophomore slump in music is real. Just look at artists that were popular around the same time that she was. You look at Imagine Dragons and their sophomore album, Smoke and Mirrors, which was a mess. And last year with Macklemore and Ryan Lewis, who were huge in 2013 as well, and their album, what was it even called? This Unruly Mess I Made. I think I was pretty nice to it when I initially reviewed it, but I've really not gone back to it. It actually really, in hindsight, was not that amazing. So I was worried about this album, and while I really liked the lead single Greenlight when it dropped back in March, which was a really long time ago when you think about it, that song came, everyone got excited, new Lorde, and then it just dropped. Nobody cared anymore. And I was disappointed. I wanted to hear it on the radio more. I wanted to hear more people get excited about it. It was never like a top 10 hit or anything. People got excited and then it just dropped off, and I was really worried about this new album. I hadn't really listened to the other singles before. Going in, I kind of wanted to go into Melodrama as blind as possible, and honestly, I'm really glad I did, because this is one damn great album. Honestly, I can say without a doubt it's better than Pure Heroine. Not to discredit that album, like I said, I still think it's pretty good. But like I said, you definitely get that more mature side of Lorde, and this time around she decided to work with producer, songwriter of Bleachers and Fun fame, Jack Antonoff, who had previously worked with a lot of pop stars. Taylor Swift probably the biggest example. And I'm iffy about Jack Antonoff. I think he's done some really great things in pop music. I think Bleachers a pretty good project, even though I was only meh about his last album. But I thought if Lorde wanted to become more of a pop star, it was a smart decision. And honestly, I'm so impressed with what Jack Antonoff was able to do from a production standpoint. The production on this is definitely a lot bigger than it was on Pure Heroine. We get some grand instrumentals, some interesting electronic music. We have a whole slew of producers actually. We got Flume on a track, and I'm a huge fan of him. Melee, who's worked with Frank Ocean and was probably the best part of that debut album from Zayn. And it's not just about the production. The production, like I said, is great. But Lorde herself is what really makes this album just way above all the pop music that's coming out nowadays. Because anyone who's at that level can get really good production. You need that songwriting to really make yourself stand out, and that's what I think makes Melodrama so special to me. We get right from the beginning, one after another, all these like great pop songs. With Greenlight, like I said, was really fun. That keychain works so well. And then we get Sober, which I think that's a little more of a songwriter piece. We get Lorde kind of talking about being at a party. All the emotions are high, and she's wondering what's going to happen once she and the guy she's dancing with start to get sober. Are the feelings going to stay the same? And with Homemade Dynamite, that's another great, great pop song. Co-written by Tovlo, who I'm actually not really a big fan of her, but for whatever reason, she's able to write one hell of a good pop song, I guess, because I really like Homemade Dynamite. We kind of get that intensity, that, the youth and rebellion of going out and partying. And it's not anything that's new, but I just feel like it's handled so much better this time around. And then when we get to the Louvre, which is probably when we start getting the first like real glimpse of sobriety on this album, is when Lorde is kind of thinking about how in love she is with this new guy. It's kind of like a little obsessive, and she's saying how, despite the fact that, he's not really her type, he sees them, in the Louvre together, which, is a little dramatic, but it's called Melodrama. It kind of makes sense. And she shows a little humility. She says, we're going to be in the Louvre, in the back, but still in the Louvre. So she's acknowledging that that this love isn't like the greatest thing ever, but it's still really special to her at least. And after that, we get the song Liability, which is probably the emotional turning point of this album, and probably my favorite song on this album. It's just a soft piano ballad, and it's just the most honest I feel like I've ever seen Lorde get. I really didn't think she had this kind of self-awareness to her, where she's singing about how nobody really wants to hang out with the party girl all the time, and how they kind of see her as a little too reckless for her. She's a liability, as she says, and maybe her lifestyle isn't bringing her the happiness she thought it was, and how her fame is only temporary. Like she mentions on one of the verses, she's just a toy for people to enjoy, and then eventually all the tricks are going to wear out and people are going to stop caring, which is, for a 20-year-old, that's pretty intense stuff. And she ends it with this really heartbreaking sentiment of we're all going to watch her burn into the sun, and that's just heartbreaking. She's able to fit all these emotions in a song that's under 3 minutes long. I honestly thought this was like a 5-minute piano ballad because of all the emotions I was feeling at once, and then I looked at my phone and it was like, wow, it's only been 2.5 minutes. That's absolutely crazy how she's able to fit all that in such a short amount of time. And then we kind of get the heartbreak. We start seeing this relationship build, and with Liability we see it all crumbling, and then obviously the double track Hard Feelings and Loveless, they kind of complement each other well. Hard Feelings is the more personal of the two, where she's talking about pretty much her feelings dealing with a breakup, and they're real. They're exactly how you'd imagine a 20-year-old would feel after breaking up with their boyfriend, and with all the drama and stuff that ensues. And even though this album is called Melodrama, I feel like she is surprisingly down to earth with this. She's not really just saying things because it's something that people can relate to. I don't feel like this is like a Taylor Swift kind of thing, where she's just kind of using blanket statements. So I feel like she's being really honest to herself with how she felt about this experience. And then on the second half of this track, Loveless, which, by the way, the two songs are kind of broken up by this really interesting, like, electronic breakdown. I don't really know how to describe it, but it sounds awesome. You know what I'm talking about when you listen to the song. It's toward the end of Hard Feelings. It's just all this weird instrumentation starts to come in, and it's just, I was so not expecting it. I actually thought Flume, who had produced the Louvre, was the producer on this song, because this totally seems like something Flume would have produced. And Loveless is a little broader, kind of talking about how millennials in general are a little bit more of a Loveless generation, hence the name Loveless. And from there we get the title track, or Sober 2, whichever title you choose to use. And that's another sobering moment, just kind of realizing all the melodrama. And I mean, I feel like this is kind of the theme of the album. She's singing about the pain of having to deal with a breakup in such a public way because she is such a huge star, and just the spotlight is on her and everyone is talking it up. They want to make it as melodramatic as possible. They want to make this breakup, which is a real personal thing to her, seem like this big, broad thing that we can all enjoy, even though it's so heartbreaking for her. And I think that's such an interesting thing. And following that up with Writer in the Dark, which is the kind of song I feel like Taylor Swift is listening to and kicking herself that she wasn't able to write a song this good. She's basically singing to her ex-boyfriend saying, isn't it a shame that you broke this heart of someone who's able to come out and write these huge songs that everyone's going to listen to, and now they're all going to know that you broke my heart, and this is immortalized, and kind of call back to the Louvre, like this is a piece of art now, this is being hung up for everyone to see. And I just love that song. She hits these really high falsettos, and the emotion is so clear. She doesn't think she can make it through, but she knows she will. It's how teenagers react to breakups, and honestly, she does it better than honestly anyone else I've heard recently, especially of her age. I honestly can't believe she's the same age as me and writing music at this level, with this level of maturity and self-awareness. And following that song, we get Supercut, which I don't want to say it's my least favorite song. I just feel like it could have been a little shorter. But it's still, the sentiment is still really strong, with her talking about how when she looks back at the memories of her and her ex, it's all these great memories, and she's acknowledging it's like kind of like a montage. She's just selecting all the best moments. It's a best of compilation of memories that's going on in her head, and that's really not an accurate depiction of what the relationship really was like. And we get a reprise of Liability, which is, again, super powerful, and I feel like if this was the last song on this album, it would be great. I think this would still be a really cohesive piece. And then we get the final closing track, Perfect Places, which I love. I think this is a fantastic single. I don't see it getting played on the radio that much. I mean, with lines like, blow my brains out to the radio or something around like that, I feel like that's something that's not going to get huge airplay. And she's really just singing about how she's young and dumb. She's realizing that. And, a lot of people think that perfection is something that can be attained. When they're young, they don't really know that these feelings they feel when they're all drugged up, that's not real. Those perfect places that they're being brought to when they're at these huge parties, that's not real. And there's really no such thing as a perfect place. And she's acknowledging that on the song. And that's kind of the end of the album. That's the end note that she goes off on, is, what the fuck are perfect places anyway, is the final line on this album. And it's just kind of acknowledging that, well, we're all trying to find these perfect places. We really don't know what we're looking for. And I guess that's a little broad on my part of explaining it, but honestly, when you listen to it, you really understand where she's coming from. It's really thought-provoking, honestly. That's the best way I can put it. This whole album is the best example I can think of exploring teenage emotions, teenage love, better than Lil Yachty did on his album, Teenage Emotions. It's just such a personal experience to listen to it, and you just are really sympathizing or empathizing. What is it? I don't know. You're just really feeling for Lorde on this album, and I didn't know she had this kind of stuff in her. This is a must listen to, and I'm really glad this is the first review I'm really able to do on this YouTube channel, because sometimes I'm a little more harsh on albums, and I like to be nice. I like to be good to music, and that's why I'm really happy I can give this album an A. I have no problem saying that. It's probably the first A I'd give an album all year. This is a really great album, guys. This is definitely a contender for Album of the Year for me. I love every second of this album. If I had a complaint, probably be more of a selfish complaint saying I wish there was more songs on it, but honestly this is so cohesive it doesn't need it. I just hope that we don't have to wait another 4 years to hear another Lorde album if she's going to keep making music this good. And Jack Antonoff, keep doing like this kind of stuff. Keep making music at this level, because clearly you're really good at it. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy. Discuss, do you agree, disagree, what do you think about Melodrama? And hopefully I'll have some more reviews coming up. I know this is a super busy time for music to be coming out, so I'll definitely have music reviews out as soon as possible. And yeah, thanks for watching.